Alrighty, I've been hearing a lot about these Los Angeles protests. I'm pretty sure everybody has. But this one video caught my attention. A man who entered the US illegally was out protesting ICE. Well, then he should probably be deported. He said he's anti-capitalist and wants the US to become a socialist country similar to the Soviet Union. Here's a thought. If you're illegal, how about you go back to your country and turn your country into a socialist country? But anyway, I'll pop in the video and take it from there.
We don't agree with the term illegal. We're undocumented. We've been here for thousands of years before you guys showed up, screwed up everything.
Alrighty, first off, the US isn't 1,000 years old. So, your ancestors might have been on the land for thousands of years, but they didn't build the US. Nations have laws. You're not undocumented. You're an illegal. So I'm guessing when he says you people, he means why people screwed up everything. Well, let's see here. I'm 90% sure the clothes you're wearing is polyester. That hat is probably made in China. And you probably have a cell phone, which uses electricity and the internet, two things that were invented by a white man. The radio waves were invented by a white man. So, I'm not exactly sure what the white man screwed up. Now, if he's referring to the colonizers, that's a whole other question. And it goes like this. Could the Native Americans have advanced to the level of technology we have now if they weren't colonized? Short answer, no. But let's do the long answer too. Alright, so first off, let's do the North American Indians. They're split between two groups, hunter-gatherers and the coastal ones. The hunter-gatherer ones, could they have advanced? No. Why? You're spending all your time hunting and gathering, so you don't have time to develop technology, in my opinion. Now the ones on the coast, they had more structures. They actually had more agriculture. I think they even taught the English how to grow crops, companion crops I think it's called, and they had fishing. So because they had a reliable source of foods, they had more time for building things like structures and art. That being said, could they have developed electricity? No. Why? They were in the 1600s, and they had no metalworking, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think they had the wheel. So I don't think, I'm 90% sure, they wouldn't have been able to advance. The 10% of me that says that they would have been able to advance, that would have took thousands of years. And that hinges on one thing. Do they have a drive to change? Because when I look at the Native Americans, back then, they had no drive to change. They were content with the way things were. If you're content with the way things are, you're never going to change. People say necessity is the mother of all invention. Yeah. Did they have a necessity? Not really. They lived in harmony with nature and everything just sort of stayed the same. Then, out of the blue, the Europeans arrived with boomsticks and four-legged animals that could run a person down, and of course, diseases. I'm not 100% sure if the Europeans knew of these diseases or not, but anyway, and now we get into the conflict part. Even as the Europeans were gobbling up land, you had some tribes that were still fighting and killing each other. For example, the British had a tribe of Indians, and the French had a tribe of Indians. If I remember correct, these tribes hated each other. You know what they should have done? They should have put aside their hatred of each other and unified. And rather than attacking both the French and the British, they should have just focused on one, like the French. The British would have just saw that and shrugged it off and said, well, they're going after the French. Leave them alone. And then when the French were gone, they could turn around and go after the British. But I think that's called hindsight. There's nothing you can do about it now. Alrighty, now it's the South Americans' turn. So, what do I know about the South Americans? I know there was lots of jungle tribes. I know you had the Inca, you had the Maya, and you had the Aztecs. So I'm gonna probably focus on the Aztecs. So, do I think the Aztecs could have advanced? Well, they were more advanced than the North American Indians in that they had stone structures and they actually had a form of metalworking. It was just gold, though. Now, why do I think they wouldn't have advanced? Well, they were very religious, very superstitious, and religion doesn't really go well with technological advancements. Gold is great and all, but you can't really make really useful tools out of it, so they were still using like bone and stone tools, if I remember correct. Did they have the wheel? I'm not 100% sure. And just like the North American Indians, you have to have a will to change. Because if you don't have the drive to change, you're not going to change. As far as I know, their society revolved around human offerings. Their military structure, if I'm not mistaken, the ranks were based on how many people you could catch alive for human offerings. And when I look at that, I wonder, how long has that been going on for? Is there any drive there to change? Not that I could tell. So I would say I'm 80% confident that they wouldn't advance. The 20%, it would take hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. I mean, they would advance faster than the North American Indians, but not by much, if at all. Now, another way they could advance is through military conquests. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, say you have a military and you conquer another rival, and that rival has something like a better weapon, and you take that and you advance. But what rivals did the Aztec Empire have? The Maya were basically exactly the same, and all the forest tribes were probably less advanced. And then to the north, again, the North American, were less advanced. So they couldn't advance through military conquest either. Now, could the Aztec Empire expand its territory? Yes. Now, where would they expand to? Well, the south, they'd have the Maya, so they'd probably want to go north, which is the path of least resistance, which would be North America. Now, this South American guy, probably a Mexican, he says that white people screwed up everything. Well, if the white people never arrived in America, his ancestors, probably the Aztecs, they would have screwed over the North American Indians, in my opinion anyway. And why? All for human offerings and slaves. Alrighty, so that's my thoughts on this guy's whole white people screwed up everything. So let's get into his socialist take.
We should organize together with the U.S. working class and fight together and create a better system. We're anti-capitalist.
So wait a minute. This guy says that white people screwed up everything, and now he says he wants to ally with the working class. Well, I got news for you, guy. Vast majority of the working class is still white people. But anyway,
We think socialism does work, real socialism, not Venezuela, not Cuba, not any of that crap that they try to sell us as socialism.
maybe I'm mistaken, but if I remember correct, wasn't Venezuela lauded as a democratic socialist utopia? Then it went all dictatory. And as for Cuba, they'll say, oh, well, that's communist, that's not socialist. None of that crap. Well, that's your socialist crap for you.
And we believe it would be a more humane system that will take care of most of all people's necessities.
Is there a country we can look to kind of model the socialism idea?
The only model would be Soviet Union the first 4 years. After that, It became a mess. Sadly, there was a bureaucrat leadership that grew out of that, but it has to do mainly with the attacks of the U.S. and all big powers against that system that was working. In the few years that it lasted, it showed the world that it could do much better than capitalism.
The one thing I can agree with this guy on is bureaucracy and corruption. Because the bureaucracy grows so massive, it has so much corruption that it basically collapses in on itself. Now, on to the whole first 4 years of the Soviet Union. Weren't the Soviets instrumental in defeating the Yazidis? That was more than 4 years. Now, speaking of the Yazidis, well, I'm gonna say it. The Yazidis were socialists. It says it right here. The term Yahtzee is an informal and original derogatory term for a member of the Yahtzee Party, which stands for National Socialist German Workers' Party. Emphasis on the socialist. The word Yahtzee abbreviates the party's name, National Solista. I think I said that right. The difference? The Yahtzees are on the right. The communists are on the left. So anyway, finishing up this video, a guy talks about how he wants real socialism. Well, there were many attempts at real socialism. They all failed. But he doesn't want to acknowledge that, which is unfortunate, but that's what socialists do. So history will just keep repeating itself. Anywho, take care out there in clown world.